I'm Josh Cooperman, and this is Convo by Design with a look at the modern smart home and function versus fiction. Our homes are getting smarter. Designers and architects are being given the tools to increase the IQ of home by making it more functional, using smart devices to perform new functions and some old ones. And with this comes a little confusion and challenges in making it all work together. All these individual parts, how do they come together and work cohesively? This conversation is the latest edition of A Moment of Zen, conversations presented by Thermasol that explore designing for wellness and tranquility. This chat features designer John McClain, technology integration expert Dave Raines, and Patrick Weidl from Thermasol. We're talking about tech, integration, and making it all work together within the design. Convo by Design is presented by Walker Zanger, a fantastic company and an equally fantastic design partner. While the Walker Zanger brand was built on the promise to inspire designers and architects to do their best work, there's far more to it than that. Yes, that promise is fulfilled every day through a commitment to provide the best ceramic, glass, stone, porcelain, and concrete surfaces and finishes. But at the heart is a family-owned and operated business that provides stunning surfaces for a well-designed home and does it to make designers and architects do their best work for their clients. Walker Zanger started in 1952, and they are absolutely one of the best trade partners a designer can have. Check out their newest collaborative line with designer Pieta Donovan, a collection of cement and ceramic tiles inspired by the patterns and colorways of the 1970s and created with a comfortable modernity. Walker Zanger is on the cutting edge of design, featuring products for every style and architectural feel you can create. And they provide homeowners with the materials that dream kitchens and baths are made of. Check out any of their 14 showrooms across the country or shop online, walkerzanger.com. Thank you for joining us today for A Moment of Zen. This is a presentation presented by Thermasol. And basically, what we're talking about is, especially in light of everything that we've been living through for the last 5 or 6 months, it's kind of shown a light on how our homes are functioning, more importantly, how they're not functioning, and how we can sort of fix them and make them more livable and make them more enjoyable. This particular conversation I'm extremely excited about. It's function versus fiction. And, we've in the design space, we've always talked about technology, and tech for the longest time used to be, well, we're going to hang the TV here, and the technology part of it and the integration part of it is how we were going to hide the wires. That was the extent of tech in the design space as it relates to a smart home. But things have been changing dramatically, and now 69% of homes contain one or more smart devices. And I think there's a number of other stats here that we'll be putting out for you periodically, but I think it sort of drives home the point that it's not just tech, but it's smart tech is really driving design. And so we have 3 amazing guests today who are going to talk us through some of these ideas. First is Dave Raines with Osby, John McClain of John McClain Design, and Patrick Weidl with Thermasol. Guys, what I wanted to do is, in a second, I think I want to throw it to you, and Dave, I'll throw it to you first in just a minute, to sort of introduce yourselves and sort of explain how you got to where you are today and what you do in the space. And I wanted to tell everyone who's joining us, if you have any questions for us, do me a favor, down at the chat box, type in your question, and we'll get it read for you when there's a break in the conversation. So with that, and again, thank you for joining us today, because there's a lot of ways to spend your time, and we appreciate you being here. Dave, I'm going to start with you. How did sort of tell us about you and how you got into this, and tell us about Osby.
All right. Way back in college, I started an IT company, just fixing computers, setting up routers, back when everybody was buying those blue Linksys routers, and cable modems were just coming out. And people started asking, okay, you're done setting up the network. Now, what about this thing called a plasma screen? And we started mounting flat panel TVs, started bringing on more people, and then more and more people were asking, can you do this? As the years went on, can we have a smart this? Can we have a smart that? And we would always look into what was out there, what the latest and greatest is. We would get it, we would test it, bring it through all its paces, and clients would ask us, what should we be getting? And we would get into the automation of the lights, the shades, the HVAC control, surveillance cameras, electrified locks at your doors, and things like that. So that's a little bit about what where I started and what Osby is.
Thank you. Patrick, I'm going to throw to you. You are with Thermasol. Explain Thermasol for those who are not up to speed
Sure.
and what you do.
Sure. So Thermasol's been around actually since 1958. It was started by a family company, David Altman, and by a couple plumbers in New York City. And they got an inquiry from a French diplomat that basically came over and was interested in doing a steam bath. And so they got off the phone and said, yeah, we could do this. And so they piped it up all the way up to a penthouse in Park Avenue, New York City, and went back to their daily lives. And at that time, they took, $10,000 some odd dollars, which is more money than they ever saw. And so a couple of weeks later, one of his buddies gives a call to David and says, hey, we're interested in doing something like this too. Can you help us out? They hung up the phone, and then lo and behold, there was something to this. And here we are 62 years later. We've definitely evolved as a company. We've really focused in and honed in on the health and wellness aspect, along with a technical touch and kind of connecting through technology and bringing a whole health and wellness experience to the bathroom, that being steam showering and smart showering.
Thanks, Patrick. John, we've known each other for a long time. You know I'm a huge fan of your work, and I'm thrilled that you're here. For those who may have not seen your work in the past, you're a bicoastal designer. Started in Florida, came out to LA. Take us through the journey of the practice. Where did you start? When did you start? How'd you wind up out here?
Well, I kind of fell into design as a profession. I did design for family and friends for years, and then started my own firm after I had an HGTV show. And I was like, man, okay, I can do this. And then went back to design school, et cetera, et cetera. So started my office in Florida, then had a job offer for a firm here in LA. Moved to LA, worked with that firm, and then a few years later, here I am with my own offices back in Florida, and then as well here in LA. So I reside in LA, and then we do everything from full renovations, new builds. We love those, so we can get in on the ground level. And then we also do, of course, just the decorating aspect of everything. So we kind of do it all, and we have a wide variety of projects and have a great team that works on both coasts, and I kind of just pop back and forth as needed. But we're very happy and very fortunate with where our firm is at the moment.
I'm actually going to start with you because we've spoken before, and I know how you work. And one of the things that I admire most about your practice is that you are a fearless designer. Some designers try to stay in a lane and they try to stick with what they know. You've always been one of those individuals who wants to know what else is out there, who wants to you want to try it, you want to play with it, you want to see what the new toys are so that you can integrate them into the projects. And I wanted to ask you specifically because of that, not to go way back to the beginning of time and design, but really in the last 5 or 6 years, because I think that's when the greatest strides have been made, especially in kitchen and bath as it relates to technology. How do you stay on top of, and again, it's the difference between just technology based and actually a smart home. How do you stay on top of the products? How do you deliver and research new products in the market?
Well, we do it a couple of different ways. So my own internal way of doing it is, of course, I'm a member of a lot of the associations, NKBA, ASID, and those type of associations that really are helpful in just reminding us of the new technology that's out there, the new things that are on the market. And then from there, I actually do my own investigations and reach out to individual companies and individual representations of those companies. And I bring them in on my weekly meeting with my team. So every week we have a different a visitor to our meeting, and that team, my team gets to hear this person, what their products are, and that can range from technology, that can range from just decorative items, but I like to focus on the technology part because yes, you are so right. A lot of our clients are getting very savvy on that, and it's sometimes they know a little bit more than us, which is scary. So if we don't stay on top of it, we look like we're the underdogs, and I don't ever want that to happen. And so yeah, we really try to be proactive about educating ourselves, and that's why I think this panel is really great today for other people who might not have even considered it for a project or have even thought about how their clients would react if they were to present to it, because clients don't know what they don't know, and I think it's up to us to bring them certain things sometimes that makes their lives better, because that's kind of what our job is as a designer.
Totally agree. And also, Dave, I want to throw this to you because I think that that's a really important point that John makes. You know, people don't know what they don't know about tech. For someone who's in it every single day, and I think, you know, with designers and architects in particular, it's one thing to discover new products and try to figure out how to incorporate them into design. It's another thing to try to educate the client who may be a complete Luddite. They may know nothing about it. And then it's something completely different to try to figure out, how do we integrate this within every given project? That's why I think that this is a really interesting dynamic in conversation. And if Patrick, if you or John want to jump in on this too, about how the partnership works between a brand, an integrator, and a designer. But Dave, curious, how do you recommend that designers and clients stay on top of new tech because it comes out so fast?
Well, that's one of the reasons to bring an integrator in. And when they bring an integrator in, it's our job to tell them what's best, to bring them samples, to show them the newest keypad that's out there, to show how you can control this a different way versus that. We usually spend that time and go through it and say, just to let you know, I know you did this on the last job, but hey, there's a nicer version of that, or there's a more environmentally friendly version of material that we can use for our shades, for example. So, and here's an example of a keypad on the wall, and that one happens to be very small. It's much smaller than your average wall plate, and you can have different size buttons on it, and those buttons illuminate. So those are the different things we would bring to the table and show you what's available. And I'm sure many people have done the invisible speakers for when you come to audio. In this shot, we have invisible speakers throughout the entire ceiling, the Venetian plaster ceiling. So there are solutions that we bring as integrators. So get that integrator in there early.
Patrick, as a brand, how do you work with integrators? And do you do it internally? Do you recommend third parties? How do you work with designers and architects to make sure that the product is installed and specified the way that it's supposed to be?
Sure. Well, as of recently, we rely heavily on the education process, whether it's in-person trainings via CEUs or just lunch and learns at their firm. But recently, in light of everything, we've had to modify kind of our approach to make sure that we're still capturing the design audience, because as of late, there's a lot of webinars and stuff going on. So how do we keep up with education, both with trade and the showrooms? We've come up with an approach, as you can see behind me, that we've come up with a virtual showroom that we can actually touch base one-on-one with the designer and teach them hands-on without them getting wet per se. They can see it through the video on how to demonstrate and what Thermasol can bring to their project, whether it's simply steam or smart showering. But again, this goes back to the heavy education side. We partner with our reps around the country, and they obviously are the boots on the ground that are able to penetrate the showrooms on a daily basis and keep constant communication with current product offerings and so forth and so on. But in regards to the trade, we rely on our CEU content to reach the designers directly, because it's incentivized for them to kind of join in and keep in touch with the latest and greatest that Thermasol has to offer.
So really interesting that you bring up CEUs. I think, John, to you, I'm curious, to stay on top of CEUs and to stay on top of the education process, I'm curious, how do you manage that, and what percentage of time do you think you have to spend on that? And what have you always said from an education standpoint? What's missing? What
what could be done to help you get more information in a timely manner that you can actually practically use?
Well, like Patrick said, everything now is just like we're doing. It's on a webinar. It's on some sort of virtual learning system. There are so many CEUs that I've taken during the pandemic that were like so amazingly easy to get to that I've enforced my whole team into taking them. So I would get the email, get the notification, and we would just jump on it. And I really hope, hint, hint, Patrick, that this can continue where we can do a few of these virtual CEUs and virtual learning courses, because I think it's so easy for people to get the same amount of information. Now, I do miss the interaction, the face-to-face, of course, with different reps, and that is going to be something that I am going to look forward to getting back. But I have really embraced this virtual learning with CEUs and other, just not even necessarily CEUs, but sometimes just good informational chit-chats like you guys host, Josh, on your podcast and things like that are just really good informational things. But that being said, of course, we have requirements to meet as to obtain a number of CEUs per year to keep our certifications and licenses and so forth. And those we have to meet. Some of my team members on my team, my designers, aren't necessarily required to meet those CEU criteria, but I do enforce them to actually take the courses anyway and still continue learning. For instance, we have a newer employee. She's actually still in school. She's just about to graduate, and I'm treating her exactly the same way I would treat everyone else and asking her to also start the education process, because it's just something that we have to do, and it's our responsibility as a responsible designer to do those things.
That's great. I totally agree. And it's timely. I got a question from Charlotte who wanted to know, Dave, this is for you. I think it's a great question. Thanks, Charlotte. At what phase in the project should a designer bring on an integrator for both new construction as well as an existing remodel?
So we like to be brought in when it's just the architect, before any designer is brought in, before any builder has been hired, because there are a lot of important things to think about when it comes to the mechanical systems and coordinating what goes in, where it goes, the lighting system, right? We need to make sure everything, the wire diagrams are created. And the earlier that you do get us in, the better your pricing is from your GC, because everything's been figured out. Every last piece. You don't need to pick out the TVs back at that stage, but we do need to consider where everything's going so the proper power is allocated. Shade pockets, for example, making sure that there's enough openings in the windows. So at the architectural stage is my answer.
You know, it's really funny. You know how sometimes you look at your work from years ago and you shudder at it's like, did I, a few years ago, I spoke at Dwell on Design, and one of the guests was an inventor who created a smart coffee cup, right? So it would keep your coffee cup at the temperature you wanted it to. And everyone thought that this was just the coolest thing that had ever been invented. And I look back now, it's like, really, we talked about a coffee cup for 30 minutes, but it was unique and it was novel. And I think that there are so many options now as it relates to home technology. And it's not just the tech side, but it's also the smart side, and that's why we're sort of talking about fiction versus function. It's one thing to want, a studio quality theater room, home theater, but it's something else to have a home that can actually think for you and be intuitive and sort of tell you what it is that you're going to want before you want it, right? So John, I'm curious, what are people asking you for now that maybe they weren't asking you for 6 months, a year, 2 years ago?
Well, I mean, Dave, you may say that they don't have the television, but I promise you the husband in the house has already picked out and probably purchased the TV that's going in there. Yeah. That seems to be where everything revolves around. So to answer your question, Josh, I see the split between couples. So there's always one, if it's a family, I see a couple where one of them wants, all technology, all the bells and whistles, and then the other one perhaps is like, I just want to turn the lights on in an easy manner. And then the other one is like, no, I want the music, I want the security, I want the external lighting, I want, the steam controls in my shower, I want to turn my shower on before I get in. And we've had all of those, and it's this kind of happy mix where you have to get in and work with them, find out their needs, and then work with integrators like Dave who help us facilitate that. But they want everything. I mean, lighting, music, and security, I would say, are the most three requested things that we get asked for. And then from there, you have the clients who want the shower controls and the chromotherapy and the aromatherapy and all those different things in their shower. And I love those. I think they're fun. I think it's great to get into those things because it's kind of to always be a needle in a haystack. The ones that really are open to doing all of the really cool things that smart technology can do these days. And then everyone loves their Alexa and they want to incorporate Alexa into that, of course. I gotta talk low or mine might come on if I say it too loudly. So there might be some light flashing. But yeah, it's this interesting dynamic that I think we as designers have to sit down and, just like our fact-finding mission on a design project, we have to figure out what is really the nitty-gritty of what this client wants and what they can afford and what their budget is and what they really need.
And speaking of it, it's so funny, John, I'm laughing because one of the funnest things, if you've never done it before, is to just walk through, well, eventually when we can be in crowds of people, walk through crowds of people and just ask Siri or Alexa to do certain things, to play certain things, and then you'll see other people's phones start to come on. It's really fun if you get a chance to do it. If we're ever in a crowd again.
We will be.
So Patrick, John brought up a really important point that I think is really cool. And one of the things that Thermasol has been doing is that integration. There's a difference between a shower that is functional, utilitarian, it's got a job, and one that's become completely experiential, right? So this is a new experience for people. So run traps on this for me between aromatherapy, chromotherapy, the touchpad, and all the things, all the functions that it does, in addition to the fact that you can set profiles for all of the individual users, which I think really takes the idea of a smart home and makes it so personalized that it really makes it what everybody's looking for.
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Josh. With our ThermaTouch specifically, which is shown on the screen, that's bringing a whole new level of connectivity to the customer in their home. And at their convenience too. If they so choose that they still would like the ThermaTouch without all the bells and whistles, you can do a simple touchscreen and a steam generator. But what we've really done is brought a new level of experience and customization, as you pointed out. So our ThermaTouch, you can expect to see quite a few features on there. One of the features, and is one of my favorites, is shown on the screen, is the tranquility scenes. These are 9 preloaded set nature scenes ranging from a beach to a babbling brook to a waterfall, where the consumer can basically have background noise while they're enjoying a steam. It doesn't have to be maybe the app store that we also offer on the ThermaTouch, which features live TV, sports apps, news apps, weather apps. I actually have The Last Dance going on behind me on the ThermaTouch. So and of course, bringing health and wellness is a huge aspect for us, along with technology. And so with our whole setup, through the light and sound system, we offer a chromotherapy, a mood lighting, and healing through light, which is the chromotherapy. And with the ThermaTouch, you're able to combine all of those on one pad, and essentially control your own destiny the second you walk in your shower, from a simple command through Alexa, telling your shower to turn on at a certain temperature or flow rate, or even telling Alexa to start up the steam. I'm going to be in there in 10 minutes because the kids are being put to bed, and I'm going to watch myself some sports and get some R&R. So really, we're providing a level of experience that really is paving the way in the shower for future opportunities. So it's pretty exciting, and we got a lot of cool stuff coming. It doesn't stop here.
Well, and I think that's a good demonstration of, I think this is making people think differently about their design, really about the way that they live and what they expect and what they want from their homes. So here's kind of the rub, right? When your refrigerator is a smart refrigerator and your shower's smart and your TVs are operating and all of your individual smartphones and devices, there's a problem. And the problem is, how do you feed that with enough bandwidth? Which, Dave, coming to you probably saw this coming a mile away. How do you set up a home that is, and this works for the office too, but how do you set up a home to make sure that everything can function the way that it's supposed to?
Depends what it is, right? If it's there are two sides here. There's a lot of the do-it-yourself components that are out there, the Alexas, the Philips Hue, all of these other little devices you can get on Amazon, right? You know how those things play. They sometimes work, they sometimes don't work, and you have to put good Wi-Fi in for them. But then you have the custom home, which probably everyone on here comes from that world where they're doing custom building and custom installations of everything. We need to make sure what we're putting in can talk. And a lot of that's working with each manufacturer. Each manufacturer usually has what's called an API, and that allows different components to talk to each other on a level that we can program. So we just ensure what's going in is compatible to create the interface you're seeing on the screen, that everything talks to each other. But it is important. A lot of times we do need to get some of these components, beta test them in the shop, make sure that they do work, make sure that they are compatible before approving it and putting it on the spec.
And John, as far as the design goes, are you working with integrators now? Have you in the past? And do you think after this, maybe you will be more in the future?
I will raise my hand and say that I always bring in people smarter than I am, Josh. No matter what it is, whether it's my own employees or outside people, I always do that because it makes my firm look better at the end of the day. So I always work with an integrator when it comes to smart home technology. I don't even pretend to know to think that I know everything about it. I know enough to be dangerous, and I know enough that what my client wants, and sometimes my client knows enough just to be dangerous too. But I look at it more of accomplishing a goal. So if my client's goal is to have a more secure home, if their goal is to come home and push one button and turn the lights on, that's how I approach the subject. So I approach it from a very matter-of-fact standpoint, and I kind of make my priority list with my clients and then work with the integrator to figure out how to do that. And like Dave said, my preference is to do it on a new construction home. We've done many of those on new construction homes where every single aspect of that home is worked into smart technology, and I love that. And that way, every single design decision aesthetically, just like the home we're showing now, we did this home. This home was a new construction, brand new home. We were so fortunate to be able to get in there and work with the integrator and work with the architect and work with the engineers and really get this house not only functional but beautiful. So all the outside landscaping lights are controlled, the interior lighting, the security, the door, every single thing. And the client couldn't be happier. The wife is like, yeah, I don't even know. I don't care. And then the husband's like, yes, this is the house of the year. And I'm like, it is kind of the house of the year because we were, again, really able to get in on the ground level and get it to get all the components hidden, if you will, so that they don't have to be an eyesore or that they don't have to be a problem later for knocking down a wall or opening up a soffit and that sort of thing. So that's my preference, is the new construction, but we do plenty of homes as well where we're working on retrofitting those systems in place.
Well, and as it relates to retrofit as well, Dave, you said you want to be involved when you're with the architect, at the same time. I think that's also helpful too, because it helps John and the design team. If you know that you're going to be putting wires or a router someplace, or you're going to be putting something behind a sheet of marble, and you have that advanced time or something to put behind mirror or something, I think that it's the hard part for me, because I'm not a designer and I'm not an integrator, is trying to figure out, how do you plan predictively, right? How do you try to look like some of these things, like, do we really need a camera inside our refrigerator? I don't know. Maybe we can debate that at some point in time. It's not a movable camera, so you're at the store. You can't see everything. I don't know. Maybe there's a use for that. But if there's a camera inside the refrigerator, then it's taking up bandwidth at the house. That might be used for something else. What we're looking at here is we're looking at a screen that obviously disappears. Dave, how do you look at tech and say, this is, I don't want 19 different remotes. I want to work everything off a device. Here's what I want now. Here's what might work in the future. Maybe these other things I don't really need.
So there are a lot of things that we pre-wire for, right? If the client says, I don't think I want that, we talk to the builder and we say, look, can you throw an extra wire here? Can you put this over here? just to have it. And a lot of times that's what we do. We have a blank cover plate at the baseboard. It's there if we need it, or we leave a wire in the closet nearby that we can get to later. But we really look at it and say, what might get upgraded in the future. If we look at a TV, we say, okay, we're going to build this cabinet that's going to make the TV go away, but we might leave an inch or two around it just in case, if they get a new model comes out and they want that TV to fit in, or we're putting in lighting control in half the house, and the other half of the house is going to have regular switches on the wall. We might look at and say, okay, we know that we can add wireless dimmers in later. So we just look at every single thing. Thermostats, we know that we can go to wireless thermostats later. And it really comes down to the budget. It comes down to the budget of the client, and we see what we can fit in day one.
Wait, it comes down to the budget? I've never heard that. I've never heard that before.
We want to do everything everywhere.
What does that mean anyway? I don't even know that word. That's a horrible word.
Right?
Yeah.
It's funny because I remember a few years ago, I went and toured the Neutra VDL house in Silver Lake. And one of the things that really struck me was all of this amazing design and architecture and everything sort of factored in. And you go into the kitchen and it's this really small kitchen in a relatively large house. And all of the sound and all of the lighting had all been worked into the design and the architecture in advance. And then all of the surfaces put up over it. And then, 30, 40, 50 years later, when it stops working, you have absolutely no way to get to it. How they had built-ins, there was, remember your osterizer, you could put your osterizer, the blender, directly into the countertop, which is a great feature, except when that model stops working, you have to change out the entire countertop. So, but I think those are the lessons we learn from the pioneers, right? That's how we get better. And so, Patrick, I'm throwing this back in your direction because I'm curious. Dave would prefer to work with you guys prior to the architect working on the house, but that's not always possible. And I'm thinking something like installing a steam shower in a remodel would be more difficult than a new build. But I don't really know. How do you approach remodel versus new build?
Sure. I mean, there's so many different scenarios that you have to kind of look at everything to a T, as far as what walls they have open, what they currently have going on, what kind of space do they have. And especially if it has to do with, high rises and stuff like that, especially when it comes to remodels, it gets a little trickier because then you're dealing with HOAs and codes and stuff like that. So remodels tend to get a little tricky when it comes to putting in a steam or a shower valve. Now, if the walls are fully open and there's plumbing ready to go, then the sky is the limit if the customer is willing to do the work necessary. Obviously, new build is always a great scenario to be in. The walls are open, you have that space, and things can be run accordingly. With our technology specifically, we try and make it as easy as possible to put a Thermasol steam shower in any bathroom. And with that comes education and how to properly do it. And that's where, we start here. We provide that service through consultations and meetings, and obviously relying heavily on the showroom to portray that same sentiment when it comes to remodels, that it can be easier than you think if you have the capabilities.
Dave, what's the turnover ratio on tech these days? How much of what we're putting in now, what's the lifespan?
It's actually, you'd be surprised. When you go and you put this in your wall, and you don't need to change it for your lighting. You don't, because it could be 20, 30 years unless you wanted to change it to the new model, right? You wanted to go to something different. If we look at each category and we say lighting control, you've probably been in enough homes that have just a keypad on the wall and you don't have 7 switches. That's a lighting system. You don't need to change or upgrade any of that once it is working with all of your lights. That will last you for the entirety of your home. Speakers in the ceiling, you can change them if you want better quality, but they don't really go obsolete if they're up there and they're working. HVAC control, same thing. Once it's controlling, you don't need to change it. Your TV, though, that you might want to change every 5 years to get the newest, latest, and greatest. So you have things that you would want to change, and there are a lot of things you don't need to change unless you want to. So it's more stays in the home than gets upgraded.
And it sounds like the things that you're recommending, that need changing, like TVs, the bracket, the hardware,
Same.
that's stuff.
Bracket's the same. You keep using that bracket. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things a few years ago, it's been about 10 years ago, working with one company who was, you're plugging in your iPad or your iPhone into their device, and then Apple went and changed the plug size.
Yeah.
Which is that's just not right.
So when that happened with us, we basically took out the unit that you would dock your thing in, and guess what came out? A wireless version of it. So, but that was a $99 upgrade for our clients who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars with us. It was a $99 upgrade to put in a little box, and now they can wirelessly AirPlay to it. So the infrastructure stayed the same, all the speakers stayed the same. So your initial investment there's value in it, and you still hold on to that value and that investment years to come.
So John, when you're talking to your clients and you're talking through tech, does that become, I have this idea that, designers and architects, you don't necessarily have a style all your own per se, right? When I started doing the podcast, I would ask designers, I shudder at the thought now, but I would ask designers, so what's your style? And it's not a stupid question, it's just pedestrian, right? And then after time, I kind of realized that it's not your style, it's your fingerprint. Like your design will have your unique fingerprint all over it, right? The style can change. The materials can change. Everything about it can change, but it will still have your DNA sort of hard-coded into the way that you put everything together. As the opportunities keep presenting themselves for upgrades and doing more with the materials you have, how do you talk to clients about, here's how this tech is going to change the way your design functions. So let's look at this, and how many different elements. Are you working more in the bathroom and kitchen? Are you working more with the control centers? Where are you focusing your time? And the other part of this, the other elements that I think make tech for a smarter and better home is we're starting to work on light and filtering out unwanted light, noise and unwanted noise, air quality, water quality. I think all of this falls under the tech banner. So I'm curious, with so much going on, how do you work this into your DNA, your design fingerprint?
Well, the things that are hidden obviously don't matter so much, but the visual components of this are things that frankly, we do take those into consideration, and those do become part of how does the control panel look? How many are we going to have? Do we have to have so many on one wall? How do we avoid that? That is something that I think about as a designer. And, my goal is not only to come into this client's house and make their house beautiful and, choose beautiful fabrics. It has to function. If the home doesn't function for whatever need that client has, whether it's a family of 5 or a family of 2 or a single person, if they have to sleep in total darkness and they want to wake up and open the blinds and the shade opens, that's what I need to make happen. So to me, it's more about the experience, and all of these technology components work into that experience. And they're so you barely notice them these days. They're so well hidden, and frankly, they're beautiful. I think some of the components are quite lovely. And I think that especially for some of the homes that I design that are more contemporary and that sort of thing, we can put them front and center, some of the components, and then the other ones, maybe we kind of conceal them a bit. I had a client who just had multiple movable tablets throughout every room, and so that he could just take those tablets and move them around the space as he wanted to hide them, and kind of like an iPad situation, and kind of move it around and control it that way. Whereas some people prefer from their phone, some people prefer, of course, the controls on the wall. I have one client now I'm trying to balance the line. They're wanting to do smart home, but then they want some things tied to their landline phone. And I'm like, what is a landline phone? I don't even know that people still have those. But so we're trying to tie some of the notifications into their landline. So that's a special challenge. And I do have a question for Dave back on some of the things we were talking about earlier. So, as a designer, what percentage of your projects do you think do you bring a designer in, or do you ever have a designer work with them? Because I see your point in working with the architect from the beginning, but frankly, I think that that's the point, that a designer should be brought into the conversation as well. And I didn't know, do you ever, sorry to usurp the floor here, Josh, but I'm just curious, like, do you ever bring in and recommend a designer at a certain point in the process where you want the home to feel cohesive as a design?
So we are in New York, so it's very competitive here. We do recommend a few designers when we can, but most of the time, client has a designer or they have an architect.
Okay.
A lot of these projects are led by a designer because the designer has either architectural people inside their on staff, or they're handling a light renovation, and they'll bring us to the table and we will know what their style is. We will understand what's important to them, to their vision, and we'll say, okay, let's use these products with you because of that. You know, we have certain designers, they say we don't want to see any in-wall speakers, but they might want to see a sound bar, and we have those sound bars made to the width of the TV, so they fit nicely in there. And then we have other designers that want invisible speakers. So we have to work with them on what they like. But most cases, they're bringing us in for.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's kind of what I thought you were saying. I just wanted to clarify that. So I know that how confusing it could be for a homeowner to try to do and navigate all these waters, design and technology, without a designer on board.
Yeah, no, we dumb it down to them. I mean, I bring an iPad to my meeting. I bring an iPad to the meeting and I say, this is what you're getting. And as you saw in some of the screenshots before, you're getting this interface, that you have a floor plan of your home there. It's going to be real easy. Just push the room on and you build turn. We show them all of that. And then they basically say, I don't want to worry about what goes behind the walls. And that's what we work with you on, getting that all squared away.
Perfect. That's how I handle it as well. Good. Sorry.
But it takes a good designer and a good builder to understand technology because of how important it is and how it has to be integrated with, air filtration or the water or the HVAC, everything all has to be considered.
Yeah, that was my point. Perfect. Good.
Good question, John. Thank you. Oh, bud. Dave, I wanted to throw one other thing to you, because one of the things that I hear a lot, and I'd like, especially with designers, and I think a lot of designers are afraid to ask the questions because they don't want to have to try to explain it. I hear it a lot, and it's about technology and the other side of it, the security side, the safety side. If there are cameras in my home, what's to prevent somebody from turning that camera around? What's to prevent somebody from being able to listen in via Alexa? We've all heard the stories. Mm-hmm. We know what the potential threat is. And even now, when you have security systems that you can unlock and lock from a device on your phone, I've had people ask me, and I can't answer the question. I don't know how you protect the security and the integrity within the system itself. How do you walk people through that? And how, and again, is it a focus on certain products where that particular manufacturer does do the work on that side of the business?
Yeah. So, well, let's start with the cameras, for example. If you start using these Nest cameras or any of these things that use the cloud, yeah, it's really as easy as someone getting your username and password and boom, they're in. It's that easy. So there's much less security there. There are professional products that are made and used in military applications and police applications that we would use, and it would have hardened security on it, and you would have your firewall closed where people can't get in. But that can be said for every one of the categories. Air conditioning, thermostats. Those are web-based. Even speakers, some of them, like the little Sonos boxes, are accessible. So we look at every product and we discuss it with the client and we say, okay, here are all the pros. And if we're going to put this in the cloud, you have to, if you want to be safe about it, we need strict passwords. You need to change it often. things like that. So we do help them choose a product that is more secure.
And along those lines, got another question from the audience. This is a good one too. With smart programmed homes, what is the solution when the power goes out? And our clients, are they investing in a backup system?
So up in Westchester County in New York, or Long Island in the Hamptons, most of our clients are getting a whole house generator. So you're good to go. Everything's going to work. Probably your cable is going to be out because the tree fell on the telephone pole and the cable's out. So you have to watch out. You can have a generator. So then people get into the whole cellular backup, so they can get online through that. But usually these systems just work. Everything will work. But we do rely on every subsystem. We rely on the HVAC system to operate off the generator, or we rely on the lights to be plugged into the generator. In New York City, you're not really getting any generators. It's not possible, pretty much. People are out. People are just out with internet, phone, HVAC. They're just out. But typically, electricity does not really go out too much in New York City, which is great, which is where I'm located.
John, I'm curious, because you have a lot of clients in Florida. Is this something that you work into designs? Is this something that comes up?
Well, yes, and let's just be clear and honest that this is not something for the everyday homeowner who's going to buy a full home smart home system. Like this is the elite client, the one that really wants all the bells and whistles. And so there's obviously different versions of it that we can bring into the table, different smart ways to make your home smarter and work better for you. But the showers and all those wonderful things, I love doing those, but frankly, they don't happen that often. And those clients do have a backup generator in their home. That's just part of the plan that they do. And if they don't, frankly, I actually bring that to the table and mention to them that that's something that they want to consider. And Florida does. Our Florida clients, they do have a lot of power outages there. And so we do recommend the backup generator. Most of them have an entire home backup generator that they use.
So John, you said something, and I think you bring up a really great point, right? A whole home, doing this thing out like the celebrities do in the Hollywood Hills. Maybe that's not for everyone because of what the budgets are required to be.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm curious too. I think, and Patrick, I'm coming back to you on this. A steam shower to me is a luxury item. It's something that previously you found in gyms, hotels, and spas and salons. That's where you found that, and that's why it was so relaxed. You'd go there, you'd come home so relaxed. Well, why are you so relaxed? Well, because they have things that you don't have at your own house. You can't relax to that level. But I'm also wondering, that's not, you don't have to be a celebrity to be able to find certain parts within your home that you want to upgrade and make smart and make super luxurious. And Patrick, I think it's interesting. Tell me about the education process, because I think, I'm looking behind you at the lighting, and between aromatherapy and chromotherapy and steam and sauna, and sort of making, this is not something that that is built into every home. It's not, bathrooms are going to be there, but a steam shower isn't necessarily built into every bathroom. Where is the education process, and how do you get this to be more widely used?
No, that's a great point. The education process is something we lean heavily on as far as getting to the grassroots level of the showrooms that carry our product, right? So we have to relay the message from a manufacturer standpoint to our reps who represent our product all throughout North America. We have many different reps in each territory. And I'm sure John and Dave, you guys have a set of reps that you rely on. Mm-hmm. So just like they rely on their reps, we rely on our reps to portray and provide an education to the showrooms. To properly educate the customer that a steam shower can go in any bathroom. Anything is possible if you're willing to invest the time and the energy into the project. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. And one of the first questions I always ask people when I get them on the phone is, what do you want your shower to do for you? And they step back and they're like, I never really thought about that. Doesn't it just turn on and off? And I was like, it can be so much more than that if you want it to be. And just with the health and wellness aspect, I think that's really hitting home these days. And so as more people are researching how to get healthier, what aspects can I incorporate in my kitchen, my bath, my master bedroom, all throughout my home, how can I get healthier? And what really Thermasol is providing is a health and wellness experience for the consumer on an everyday level. But through education, specifically with the trade, we have to use every aspect at our capability. That being the virtual showroom that's sitting behind me. We're able to provide a one-on-one consultation, go live with someone within 10 minutes if they're just calling in and saying, "Hey, I heard about your ThermaTouch. What is that? What exactly does it do?" Well, we can go live with them and give them a one-on-one demo to make them feel more comfortable. And I think that's really what it comes down to. I think people overthink the smart shower and the steam shower. It doesn't have to be too complicated. It can be as simple as you'd like it to be, or it can be as complex and connected as you would like it to be.
Yeah, John.
I just wanted to mention, to piggyback off of Patrick's comment on wellness, we're talking about the features of how this works as far as technology and making our lives easier, but the wellness aspect of what Patrick just mentioned is huge. I have a client who had, his wife had Lyme's disease, and he really wanted to help her have a better lifestyle. We did a lot of things. We basically retrofitted their entire master suite into a wellness suite, if you will. And part of that was the chromotherapy, the aromatherapy. We used the Crestron system for all the controls. And the point of that was the husband was able to, he felt, take care of his wife on the wellness front. And he had all these great things installed into the shower for her. And he would use the technology to turn on the shower and get that ready for her before she would go into the steam shower or just take a regular shower. So the wellness aspect cannot be overlooked. It's a huge component of what this is. And wellness as a whole, I think, just even security is a wellness if you really think about it, because you're making your life a lot better.
That is an excellent point. And I do believe that there's going to be a lot of changes in the future coming out of, the last 6 months, and 2020 was just a disaster. But I think out of every disaster come opportunities that will change the way we live. We see where the need is, right? After the 1918 pandemic, there were huge changes made to foyers and vestibules and bathrooms in particular that we see in practice today. And I think we're on the precipice of some major changes in design and construction. I think we can all agree on that. I think that, where it comes to, spas and luxury living and maybe taking a little bit of the luxury where we would always go out of home to get, now we're bringing it more in home. And I think nowhere is it more affected than in the kitchen and bath, right? Last question, same question to all of you. Patrick, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the things that you think, as it relates to design and architecture, will change as after 2020?
I think, and the plumbing industry is, if you're familiar with the ins and outs, we've always been slow to the start. So, in terms of technology, I feel that a hands-on approach might be heavily used moving forward. And I think Dave said or John said it, but the in-person meetings are always great. But in regards to architectural and design, from a product standpoint, I think a lot of hands-free technology will be more incorporated, not just in the residential bath, but in the commercial baths, your spas, your hotels. Maybe just by the wave of a hand across the screen turns on your stuff. So it's how can we get more cognizant of being healthy, not just for ourselves, but maybe people around us in a large setting. How can we improve through product and really, touch on that point? Because, listen, I don't think anyone saw this coming, but it's really opened our eyes. And I'm sure Dave and John can agree from a design standpoint. We could be sitting here a year from now and something else happens. And now we got to really shift focus on the whole game. So,
No.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully not, I'm knocking on wood, but I think a design and a product standpoint, I think companies like Thermasol will continue to pave the way for leading edge technology in and around the bathroom. and with obviously a focus on the health and wellness aspect.
Dave, thoughts?
So in New York, it's getting very interesting. Things are starting to come back. People are not quite meeting in person. We are doing, lots of Zooms and go-to meetings and sharing a lot of what we do over the phone. But, I hope things are going to, I hope COVID's going to go away. And I hope all this is going to go away. And I look forward to in-person meetings with people. But yeah, right now we're just hanging in there with having, go-to meetings with people and showing them what we do. And I think everyone's ready.
John, you get the last word, which I know you love.
Always do that. I have a good answer though, and this is the legit truth. For so many years, we go and we design our client's home, and they say, "I want this to feel like this hotel that I stayed in Paris or Tokyo or whatever." I'm hearing so much more of that because it's cliche to say that, but after we're all holed up in our homes, it's our sanctuary. This is it. Like these four walls around us are what are going to wrap their arms around us every day. And we're literally in that every single day. So now more and more clients, and we're still thankfully very busy and we're still talking to clients every day, but the mindset has changed a bit. So now it is more about all of these nurturing things that we can add to their home, not just in fabrics and textures and comfy sofas, but also in, I do want my bathroom to reminisce of that hotel that I stayed in Japan. And I do want, we're designing a rooftop terrace, a deck for a client right now, and it's all based on this penthouse suite that they had stayed in at one time because they want that experience at home. So I think a lot of the things that people felt weren't attainable and they had to attain when they traveled or went somewhere else, they want them in their house now, and we're just really finding ways to incorporate all of those little things. And I think it's also worth mentioning for the designers who are on the panel today listening to this, that you should bring that up to clients as well and try to, if they haven't thought about how to nurture themselves, bring up concepts and ideas for them to really nurture themselves, their family, their health. If the wife wants to lock the door and have a spa treatment in her bathroom, figure out a way to do that and bring up ideas to them, and don't just wait for them to bring it to the table, because that's also part of our duty as well.
I think those are excellent points, all three of you. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I want to remind everybody that this conversation is being recorded and it will be published as an episode of Convo by Design. So if you wanted to go back and listen to it again, you can. It'll be there for you. Patrick, thank you. Dave, thank you. John, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your time. This was a moment of Zen presented by Thermasol, and thank you to them for the time and effort to allow us to do this. Guys, thank you very much. And for everyone who joined us, thank you very much for taking the time. Have a great day and be well.
Thank you, John, Dave, and Patrick. This was great. Thank you, Thermasol, for presenting A Moment of Zen. Thank you, Walker Zanger, for your continued support. And thank you for listening to the show. Were it not for you, there would be no Convo by Design. No, seriously. So thank you. Please make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a single episode. You can find Convo by Design online at convobydesign.com. You can also find the show everywhere you find your favorite podcasts. You can ask your smart device to play Convo by Design, and it will. Say, "Hey Siri, play Convo by Design podcast." It's fun. It's amazing. It works. If you want to continue the conversation, you can also find us on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X. Be well, and until next week, keep creating.